It is 6 in the morning, and I just measured my waist, 34 inches. I am 62 years old. 2 years ago, that number was 41, and I did not starve myself to get here. Every morning, I stir 1 tablespoon of something into a glass of warm water. It costs me about 11 cents a serving. 11 cents. And the tape measure does not lie. I know exactly what you are thinking right now, because I thought the same thing. Some old guy on the internet telling me a spoonful of pantry powder melted his belly fat. I would have rolled my eyes and clicked away. I spent 30 years believing that. But here is what changed everything for me. There is a food that was documented by the United States Department of Agriculture back in 1939. A food that quietly targets the deep fat wrapped around your organs. And it works even if you are already out of shape, already past 60, already convinced your body gave up on you. It is called apple cider vinegar. But not the way you have heard it. The real story got buried, and I am going to hand it to you today. Let me take you back to 1939. There is a USDA bulletin from that year, part of a series studying rural farm diets across the American South and Midwest. Buried in those pages is a note about fermented cider and its effect on what they called the girth of the middle-aged laborer. The government scientists noticed something strange. Farmers who drank raw, unfiltered cider vinegar with their meals carried less fat around the belly than those who did not. They wrote it down. Then they moved on. Nobody followed up. But the story goes back even further than that. In the 1820s, a physician named Samuel Thompson prescribed cider vinegar for what he called corpulence and sluggish blood. He kept records. His patients, many of them heavy farmers and merchants, reported looser waistbands within months. He did not know why it worked. He only knew what he saw with his own eyes. Then came the boxers. In the bare-knuckle era, before the pharmaceutical age, fighters used to make weight by sipping diluted cider vinegar in the weeks before a bout. There is a training log referenced in an old physical culture journal from 1902 describing a lightweight fighter who used vinegar to strip what he called soft weight while keeping his strength. He did not lose muscle. He lost the softness around the middle. These men were not scientists. They were practical. They kept whatever worked and threw away whatever did not. Here's the first reason it works, and I am going to give you the real name for it. It is called improved insulin sensitivity. Now, let me say that in plain English, the way I had to explain it to myself in my own kitchen. When you eat, your blood sugar rises. Your body pumps out insulin to shove that sugar into your cells. But after 60, that system gets sticky and slow. Your cells stop listening to insulin. So the sugar has nowhere to go, and your body stores it as fat, right around your belly, right where I was carrying mine. The acetic acid in vinegar wakes those cells back up. It makes them listen to insulin again. And when your cells start burning sugar instead of storing it, that deep belly fat has nowhere left to hide. But that is only the first mechanism. The second one is the one that finally explained why I could never get rid of the fat around my middle, no matter how many miles I walked. Here is the part that made me sit down when I read it. For 30 years, I was told the belly fat was just calories. Eat less, move more, watch it disappear. I did that. I counted every calorie. I walked until my knees ached, and the belly stayed, because nobody told me the truth. The fat around your organs is not just storage. It is an active organ, and it is on fire. There is a specific kind of fat called visceral fat. It is the deep fat, the fat that wraps around your liver and your intestines. It is different from the soft fat you can pinch. This deep fat pumps out inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. Those chemicals keep your whole body in a low, constant state of inflammation. And here is the cruel part. That inflammation makes it harder to burn the fat that is causing the inflammation. It is a loop, a trap. A study published in 2009 in the journal Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry followed a group of adults over 12 weeks. They gave them 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar per day. The group taking vinegar lost visceral fat, measured on a scan. Their waist circumference dropped. Their triglycerides dropped. The control group, drinking the same, but without the acetic acid, did not budge. Same food, same everything. The only difference was the acetic acid. That is not a story, that is a measurement. So think about what that means for a man of 58 standing in his kitchen this morning. You are not fighting your willpower. You are fighting a fire in your gut that has been burning for years. And a tablespoon of the right vinegar can start turning down the heat. It calms the inflammation while it teaches your cells to burn instead of store. Now, here's the question I had to ask myself. If a government bulletin documented this in 1939, and boxers knew it 100 years ago, why have I never heard of it? Why did every doctor and every trainer point me towards something else? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is simpler and colder than that. It is money. You cannot patent apple cider vinegar. It grows on a tree and ferments in a barrel. There is no company that owns it. And if you cannot own something, you cannot mark it up. You cannot build a billion-dollar brand on 11 cents a serving. The supplement industry sells hope in a bottle at $40 a jar. The pharmaceutical industry sells diabetes, drugs, and statins to manage the symptoms of the very inflammation that vinegar helps calm. Nobody gets rich telling you to buy a $2 jug at the grocery store. So the knowledge did not get suppressed by some villain in a boardroom. It got starved. It got ignored because there was no profit in keeping it alive. The USDA note from 1939 got filed away. The boxers died. The physical culture magazines went out of print. And a whole generation of us grew up believing the answer had to be expensive to be real. But the truth about how to actually take it, the part that made it work for me, is coming up in just a minute. When I understood what was actually happening in my body, the first thing I did was think about the man watching this who is already 63, already past the point where the fitness world seems to think there is anything worth trying. I want to speak to that man directly. I know where you are. You have lost muscle you used to take for granted. Maybe you are on a pill for your blood pressure or your blood sugar. Maybe you have looked in the mirror and quietly decided your best years are behind you. I decided that too. At 60, I looked at my belly and I told myself, this is just what old looks like. Accept it. Nobody in the fitness world was talking to me. They were all selling to 30-year-olds with abs. So let me tell you what I was afraid of. I was afraid it was too late. I was afraid my metabolism was so broken that nothing would touch it. That fear is the real thing that keeps a man stuck. Not the fat, the fear. Here is what you can do tonight. It costs under $2 for a jug that will last you a month. Take 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the kind with the cloudy strands floating in it. Those strands are called the mother, and they carry the living acetic acid. Stir it into a full glass of warm water. Drink it about 15 minutes before your biggest meal of the day. That is it. That is the whole thing. Do not drink it straight. Straight vinegar can irritate your throat and your tooth enamel. Always dilute it. Warm water pulls the acetic acid into your system gently. 15 minutes before you eat gives it time to prime your cells so they handle the meal better. The first week, I felt nothing dramatic. No fireworks. Just a little less bloated after dinner. But I kept going. And that is the whole secret to a man past 60. You do not need a miracle on day 1. You need something so easy and so cheap that you actually keep doing it. That is what changes a body. Not intensity. Consistency at 11 cents a serving. Now let me give you the second mechanism, because this is where the inflammation piece really comes together, and it involves your gut in a way I never expected. The acetic acid in that cider vinegar does something remarkable once it reaches your lower gut. It feeds the good bacteria living in your intestines. When those bacteria are well fed, they produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids. One of them is called butyrate. Butyrate is like a fire hose for the inflammation in your gut lining. It strengthens the wall of your intestine so that inflammatory particles cannot leak into your bloodstream. Doctors call that leaky gut. When your gut leaks, your whole body inflames. When your gut is sealed and calm, the inflammation drops. Researchers at institutions studying the gut microbiome have documented this butyrate effect over and over. A review in the journal Nutrients laid out how acetic acid feeds this chain reaction. The measurement that stuck with me was the drop in a marker called C-reactive protein, the number your doctor checks to see how inflamed you are. In people consuming fermented vinegar regularly, that inflammation marker came down. That is the same fire I told you about earlier, the one burning in the visceral fat, getting doused from a second direction. So now you have 2 fronts. The acetic acid wakes up your cells, so they burn sugar instead of storing it as belly fat. And it feeds the bacteria that seal your gut and cool the inflammation. 2 mechanisms, 1 tablespoon. Let me give you the practical details, because how you take it matters more than most people realize. Use 2 teaspoons to 1 tablespoon per day. Do not go chasing bigger doses thinking more is better. It is not. Studies that pushed higher amounts saw more stomach upset and no better results. Start with 2 teaspoons if your stomach is sensitive and work up. Here is something almost nobody tells you. Do not take it at the same time as certain medications. If you are on a water pill, a diuretic, or a drug for your heart rhythm, the vinegar can affect your potassium levels. Space it out and talk to your doctor. Do not take it right before bed, because lying down after acid can cause reflux. And do not combine it with a big dose of baking soda thinking you are being clever. That neutralizes the acetic acid, which is the whole active ingredient. You would be canceling out the very thing that works. Add it to a meal with some healthy fat and protein. The vinegar slows how fast your stomach empties, which flattens the blood sugar spike from that meal. I take mine before dinner because dinner is my biggest meal and the one that used to bloat me the most. Some men prefer before lunch. Find the meal that hits you hardest and put it there. Now here is the part I have been waiting to tell you, the finale. The piece that took me the longest to find, and the piece that made the whole thing finally click. I kept digging through old archives because I wanted to know how the farmers in that 1939 USDA bulletin actually used it, not the modern version, the original. And in a collection of old rural cooking and home remedy notes from the 1930s and 40s, the kind of thing handed down in farm families before there were doctors on every corner, I found it. They did not just drink the vinegar. They combined it with one specific thing. They stirred the raw cider vinegar together with a spoonful of raw, unfiltered honey, and they had a name for it in some of those old journals. They called it the switchel, or in the health circles of that era, a honey vinegar tonic. Now, at first, that made no sense to me. Why add honey when I am trying to burn fat? Honey is sugar. But here's the buried logic those old farmers understood in their bones. The raw honey carries its own enzymes and its own prebiotic sugars that feed the exact same gut bacteria the acetic acid supports. It is not fuel for fat. It is fuel for the good bacteria that make the butyrate. The honey and the vinegar work as a pair. The farmers drank it before going out to work the fields in the heat, and they stayed lean and strong, doing brutal physical labor into their 70s. They did not have gyms. They did not have supplements. They had a barrel of cider vinegar, a jar of raw honey, and a tape measure that would have embarrassed most men half their age today. The knowledge existed. It was written down in a government bulletin and in the private notes of farm families. Then the modern food industry came along, and cheap sugar and processed everything buried it. The switchel got replaced by soda. The honey vinegar tonic got replaced by a pill. One generation of stubborn farm families kept it alive in handwritten notes. And 2 years ago, a skeptical, overweight man of 60 found those notes and decided he had nothing to lose. That man was me. And now you have it too. I make it exactly the way they did. 1 tablespoon of raw cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon of raw honey, in a full glass of warm water, before my biggest meal. The honey rounds out the taste, so it goes down easy. And it feeds the same fire-fighting bacteria. That is the tonic that took 7 inches off my waist. I spent 30 years buying powders and pills and programs, looking for an answer that was sitting in a barrel the whole time. 11 cents a serving, a jug that lasts a month, and a tape measure that finally started moving in the right direction. If you want to see exactly how I built the rest of my mornings around this, the small steps that turned 1 tablespoon into a whole way of living stronger past 60, I put it all together in something simple. I call it the Aging Fix Strength System. It is nothing complicated. No gym, no prescriptions. Just the exact steps I wish someone had handed me 20 years ago, laid out in plain order so you can start tonight. You can check it out below if you want to go deeper, and I want to hear from you. A lot of men ask me the same practical question, so let me put it to you directly. If you have ever tried apple cider vinegar, tell me in the comments. Did you take it straight and hate it, or did you dilute it in warm water like I do? And did you notice the bloating go down first, or was it the waistband loosening that you felt before anything else? Tell me your honest experience. I read these, and your answer might be the thing that helps the next man decide to try. Because next time, I am going to tell you about a forgotten mineral that farm families used to get for free from a single cheap food, a mineral that quietly rebuilds the strength in aging muscle. Most men over 60 are dangerously low in it and have no idea. It is called magnesium, but not the kind on the store shelf. And the form that actually works is one almost nobody talks about. If you think losing your grip strength and your steadiness on your feet is just part of getting old, this next one is going to change your mind. Do not miss it. Let me leave you with one more thing, because I know some of you are still on the fence, still hearing that skeptical voice in your head that sounds exactly like the one I used to have. I understand that voice. It kept me broke and heavy for 3 decades. That voice told me that if something were this simple and this cheap, everyone would already be doing it. But think about how many things in your life are true precisely because they are too cheap to advertise. Nobody runs a television commercial for walking. Nobody sells you sunshine. The most powerful things for your body have almost always been the ones nobody can put a price tag on. I remember the exact morning it clicked for me. I had been taking the tonic for about 6 weeks. I reached down to tie my shoes, and I did not have to fight my own belly to do it. Such a small thing. But I sat there on the edge of the bed, one shoe half tied, and I felt something I had not felt in years. I felt like my body was on my side again. Not fighting me, working with me. That feeling is worth more than any number on a scale. And the numbers came too. My waist went from 41 to 34 over the better part of 2 years. Slow, steady, no crash, no rebound, because I never did anything drastic enough to rebound from. My doctor checked my inflammation marker at a routine visit and asked me what I had changed. I told him. He raised an eyebrow, the way doctors do, and then he looked at the numbers again and said, "Well, whatever you are doing, keep doing it." That is about as close to an endorsement as a skeptical old man like me needs. I want to be honest with you about the timeline, because the influencers never are. This is not a 2-week transformation. If someone promises you that, they are selling you the same lie I bought 100 times. What I am offering you is slower and truer. The first thing you will likely notice, within a week or two, is less bloating after your meals. Your stomach will feel calmer, flatter, at the end of the day. That is the acetic acid slowing your digestion and the gut bacteria starting to settle. That early sign is not the fat leaving yet. It is the inflammation beginning to cool. The waste comes later. Give it a month, 2 months, 3. The visceral fat, the deep fat around your organs, is actually the first fat your body burns when your insulin starts working right again. That is the good news for a man our age. The fat that is most dangerous to us is also the fat that responds first. You will feel it in your belt before you see it in the mirror. That is how it went for me. And here is the deeper reason I keep telling this story to anyone who will listen. It is not really about the vinegar. It is about what the vinegar taught me. It taught me that the answer was never expensive. It was never complicated. It was never locked behind a prescription or a membership or a $40 jar. The answer was hiding in a 1939 government bulletin and in the handwriting of farm wives who never had a gym in their lives and stayed lean into old age anyway. We were handed a story that getting old means getting soft, getting weak, getting sick. That story sells a lot of products, but it is not the truth. The truth is cheaper and it is closer than you think. So here is what I want you to do. Tonight, before you sit down to your biggest meal, pour a full glass of warm water. Add 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the cloudy kind with the mother floating in it. Stir in a teaspoon of raw honey if you have it. Drink it 15 minutes before you eat. Then do it again tomorrow. And the day after. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait until Monday. The men who wait for Monday are the men who are still exactly where they are a year from now. I waited 30 years. I waited through every fad, every powder, every program that promised the world and delivered a lighter wallet. I do not want you to wait the way I waited, because the tape measure does not care about your age, and it does not care about your excuses. It only responds to what you actually do, and what you can actually do is stir a spoonful into a glass and drink it. That is within reach for every single man watching this, no matter how far down the road you feel you have gone. I was 60 and convinced it was over. I am 62 now, and my waist is 7 inches smaller, and my body feels like it belongs to me again. That is not a miracle. That is not magic. That is 11 cents a serving, and the stubbornness to keep going after the influencers gave up on men like us. The knowledge was buried. Now it is yours. Do not let it get buried again. Start tonight, keep going, and come back and tell me what you felt first. I will be reading.